got to say, Doug and I actually ran as a team. At the time, they broke it down by gender. I don't know if they're still doing that. And so there was a male and a female, and there was only 2 at the time. And then just before the state convention, and Doug's going to talk about a little bit more, flesh out a little bit more of what Ann had to say. But just before the state convention, we found out we had a 3rd. But literally, it was like 2 weeks beforehand. I don't think that's going to happen now. The first thing I want to say is, it is so much fun. So if you can, I would, if you're thinking about this, do it, okay? And I want to also ask, how many of you took part in the state convention, the presidential convention down in Phoenix, the presidential caucus in Phoenix where we were elected? Because I saw some folks here that took part in that. Yes. And I want to thank you all so much because we were your representatives back there, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And by the way, anybody who's thinking about it, be happy to talk to you. I'm sure Doug will as well, either after today, or I'll give you my number, give me a call. I'll be glad to sit down and talk to you about it. A couple of things for you to remember. We are going to talk about being a congressional district delegate. Now, District 1 is our congressional district. And many, like Keith, know that it is one of the very largest districts in the whole United States. 10th largest district in the whole United States. It is the largest in Arizona. And we are running a campaign. So as we take you through this, you've got to remember that we need to be concerned not just about Coconino County and here in Flagstaff, but also Navajo. We have Winslow, Joseph City, Yavapai, we had Sedona, we had reservation areas, Tuba City, Monavi, Page, Williams, Grand Canyon. And as we go through this, you're going to see that when you run a campaign, the first thing you're going to want to do is know your district, know your area. Isn't that 101 for running a campaign? And so when we're going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts. That's the first thing you do. I went ahead and I went online and I did a big, huge map of Congressional District 1 with all the sub-areas, and you look up and you find out where the Democratic Party officers are for these various communities in these various counties. Okay, that's the first thing we do. So I know you want to kind of flesh out a couple of things about being a delegate, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of running a campaign. Okay?
Yes, and Ann gave a great presentation, and I won't go over anything she did except to say that congressional district, there is total gender neutrality, so there'll be an equal number of male and female delegates. There are 78 delegates available in Arizona. 5 will be chosen from CD1. It'll be 2 males and 3 females. And the way it'll work is there'll be last time it was at the Phoenix Convention Center. It may be there again, I don't know. It's going to be in April 18th. And before I forget, by the way, the delegate selection plan is online on the ADP website, Arizona Democratic Party website. And if you just put in a search for it, it'll take you there. The way it'll work is, depending upon how many candidates generate enough votes in Arizona to have a delegate or delegates, you will have the option of running one. Let's just say there are two candidates, like there were last time, Hillary and Bernie. You have basically 3 choices. You can declare, in this case for Hillary, and run as a delegate for Hillary, and based upon the number of votes that she got in that particular congressional district, that will determine how many seats or candidate slots, delegate slots will be available to people. And in this case, and Bernie had a certain number of delegates allotted to him based upon the vote in CD1, then you can decide to run that way. You could also decide to run unopposed, or unaffiliated rather, which is probably not a good idea. Because your best bet is to pick your candidate and run for that many slots. Now, one candidate may have many more slots, or more slots, than the other candidate might. I can't, do you remember how many slots there were for Bernie last year?
No, not off the top, but because there was only 2 candidates running, we had a substantial number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than Bernie, though.
Right, I meant for CD1, yeah.
Not only Dave McKell, but Celia Barrett's. I don't know if Celia's here, but Celia was also our delegate for Bernie Sanders from Northern Arizona.
Right, right. And so you'll split up into the rooms associated to the particular candidate, the specific CD that you pick. You can also run at large. However, at-large delegates are really most often used to make sure we have adequate representation from across our demographic spectrum. Native American, African American, Latino, things like that. So that's an option, but your best shot is to go as a congressional district
So
delegate.
should we get into the campaign?
Please do.
All right, let's do that. So, number 1, do your homework. Find out what Congressional District 1 looks like. Find out what counties are in our area. As I talked about, it's Navajo, Yavapai. You've got also part of Maricopa and Pima. So find out who is there. Find out who the other Democratic Party officers are in these other counties. And remember, when you run a campaign, like most of life, it's about relationships. So reach out and talk to these people. Hey, I'm running. Is anybody within your area running? And what we found out is in many of the Northern Arizona in 2016, the local county political Democratic Party, they didn't have any other candidates running. So guess what? They had candidates running. And we got them involved, and we went out there and talked to them to get them involved in us running. The other thing I think is really important, and this has not been, I think it's really important if you're running as a delegate, you are running because of your proven commitment to a candidate. So one of the best ways, in my opinion, that you can prove your worth and your electability is to show your commitment to that candidate. So I will tell you that when we were running, we were very involved. I, in particular, was very involved in the Hillary Clinton campaign. And part of showing my commitment was not only being involved in that campaign, but it was also important to let the community, my community, know what was going on with that campaign. And I think that that was a real key to help Hillary Clinton. God, what could have been. But was a key to help Hillary Clinton. But it also, I think, was very helpful for us as candidates. So I think that's important for you to do. Get a list of PCs in the areas, which is the second thing I think we did after we got the map out. You get your list of PCs. What we found in 2016 was that there were a lot of vacancies. Now, thank goodness, because we have a very active county party, we don't have a whole lot of vacancies. But in 2016, there was a lot of vacancies. It was a presidential year. And so people were interested. So we went to people within the precincts and said, hey, you know, you've been involved in the campaign, whether it be Bernie or whether it be Hillary. Why don't you take that next step and be a PC for our party? So we recruited to get people to join our party. Many of the people, I don't know about many, but there are some of you here today that were really brought in as PCs and continue to be PCs because we reached out and said, join our county party. It is the PCs who are going to vote. So you want to make sure you, number one, have those PC spots filled, and then you have your base. Anything else on that?
Well, you're probably going to cover it, but a huge part of it is turning out your PCs.
Oh, we're going to get there.
All right.
Because we had a great time doing that.
Yes, we did.
So then you run a campaign. Doug, I don't know if you brought yours, but so what we did, we had posters, because you got to create some excitement here. People got to know who you are. You got to create a buzz. So we had some posters that we got made telling a little bit about ourselves and why we were running to be a national delegate. We even had buttons made up and handed those out so we would have visibility. Not only visibility in terms of getting people in your community to commit to this and to represent or to support you, but also you're going to need this stuff when you get down to the state convention. And we'll talk about that in a minute and what we did at the state convention. So you've identified, you've created your relationships, you've talked to the other counties, and the other thing we did is we communicated. How do we communicate? Now, we were communicating all the time. Those of you who are involved know that. I don't know how many of these you got, right? It's important after you've identified your PCs and the people who are supporting you, you communicate. You communicate about your candidate. You communicate about the upcoming state convention, or state, what do they call it? State
Committee meeting.
committee? Committee meeting, that's just it. That's a really boring name. We want a big name for that. What are we talking about? Yeah, the election of delegates.
That's something different.
So then what you've got to do, you see how complex this is? And she's telling you to watch a 21-minute video, which by the way you should do. 27-minute video. So you've got your people, you've identified them, you've created your relationships. Now they've got to know what to do. And so we held house parties, informational parties, to let people know how to do this delegate selection process. And we invited everybody in, and by the way, number one, to keep people there and to keep people committed, number one, have fun. So we tried to make sure that we would have a good, fun meeting. Always bring food, always bring libations. That always helps as well to keep people interested. So once we did that, we identified our supporters, we informed our supporters, we kept them informed about our candidate and about the party process. Now it gets set up in Phoenix, and it's this huge, vacuous place, the convention center. And guess what? We have to travel 2.5 hours to get down to Phoenix, try to find some place, first find the place, then find some place to park, and then try to get together with your group of people. And that's why it's so important to have these organizational meetings. Now let's talk about getting people down to Phoenix from Flagstaff, Arizona. How many like to drive to Phoenix? One person likes to, two people like to drive to Phoenix. And that's the problem you're going to get, right? So here's what we did. Go ahead.
Well, we rented vans and we bussed people down. That's pretty much it. I mean.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much
It
fun.
was. Well, we developed a lot of camaraderie and stuff
I
like
better
that.
say the Bernie delegates hitchhiked.
The Bernie delegates did hitchhike. We did say, you can come on to the van. But what we did is we had vans. We had, people volunteered to drive. We got 2 vans. And we had little snack packs so that everybody, because you're down there all day, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. When we did it, we had the vans all ready, waiting in the back, and it snowed. So it was like, had we not done this, I'm sure people would have woken up, seen the snow, and said, I'm not going down to Phoenix. So it was really great. We had snack packs. People had little snacks going down. People were singing in the buses. People had fun. We get down there, and by the way, we get down there and you're at this big vacuous building, so they need to see you, right? Because there were some people who drove down. So we made sure they could see us. We had signs. We had a life-size cutout of Hillary Clinton. We had everything we could do so that people, number one, people knew Coconino County was there, I will guarantee you. And it's also so other people know where you are. And we sat together, we were organized, we sat together, we knew what to expect, and we also found ourselves in a situation where we had the largest group of PCs down there in Phoenix than anyone. More than Maricopa County, by the way. It was unbelievable.
Any proxies or no for that?
You can have, you can carry no more than 3 proxies, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'll have to look that up
Yeah.
and confirm. Don't take that to the bank. But I think you can carry 3 proxies.
So we're all there, we're all together, we know what to expect, we got our signs, and you then basically come up and you give a speech.
Right. And let me say, it's really important to do an exciting, engaging speech. That can sway people. And so if you're going to run as a delegate, as Patrice said, she's happy, I'm happy to answer any questions, and but really work on a good speech.
Yeah, don't go up there and ramble. It drives me crazy when people do that anyway. That's why I always have notes, even sometimes I forget them, but it's always good to have some notes, have some ideas. So you're down there, you give your speech, and basically there is 2 ballots. So there's a first ballot, you need to get a majority. If you get a majority, then you don't have to go to a second ballot. We actually won because we had the largest group. And it was kind of a little bit, well, sad kind of, I guess. Yeah, it was kind of sad.
We blew everybody away. is what
Because if you were from, the outskirts of Maricopa County, and you thought because you're in Maricopa County, you were gonna get all your people there, and as usual, we're gonna take over, and you walk into this room, and 3/4, am I right? 3/4 of the room were from Coconino County.
Wow.
So it was pretty, you could just, the people were just crestfallen. But we ended up winning on the first ballot. And there then was that 3rd position that was available. Well, we had so many people there, we could determine the 3rd position. And so we actually did go ahead and throw the support behind one of the former Hopi tribal chairs, Ben Lubanza, and I may be mispronouncing that. And he joined us and was our 3rd delegate to the convention. So anything else on the state convention?
There'll be a vote, depending what candidate you're caucusing for, or candidates you're caucusing for. There'll be a vote for women, and there'll be a vote for men. So there'll be separate votes for each gender.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So does each candidate have a separate caucus? Like last time there was 2,
Yes.
today, this time there might be 4. So how does that work?
Thank
Bernie
you.
had his caucus for CD1.
That was separate from,
Absolutely. Same building, but separate room.
They're across the
We all
street.
drink beer.
Right.
We want to be in your
And then the
caucus.
Hillary folks have caucus, the PCs. And you, as a PC, you can decide, where you want to go, I suppose, but.
So this time there could conceivably be 3 or maybe
Yeah.
even 4.
There could be.
There could be.
Caucuses.
And so, as a candidate, for a delegate, you want to think about, well, who are you most passionate about? You want to run for that delegate. But you also may realize your odds may be higher because there may be less slots available for that particular delegate.
I think the last time was 3 Hillary and 2 Bernie from
That's
city
right.
because it was close,
Actually,
fairly close.
no,
but
that's
Hillary-
not true. It was
Was
3
it
Hillary
one?
and it was 3 Bernies.
Oh, it's 3
So,
and 3.
and they were
Okay.
all from northern Arizona.
And it was based upon the vote in CD1.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
statewide, it's based upon, at-large are determined by the vote at-large candidates, but for CD, it would be what the vote was out of that CD.
There's a question from Mrs. Seal.
Yes, what's the difference between the elected PCs and the assigned PCs?
None. So if you are elected or assigned, you have 1 vote. So if you're down there, you have 1 vote. So that's a great question.
that Don and I are going to be contacting all the PCs
Yeah.
in,
The main difference there is when the
Since
state
they're
has its reorganization.
personally, get them so that we can design a plan.
Which will happen. I don't know when it happens, but only elected PCs can vote for state officers, and things like that at the organization. After that, I don't know of any other difference.
And I'm not sure how you go from appointed to elected.
You have to run for office. It's easy.
Yeah,
Super
we're
easy.
gonna be talking about that because we're coming on to the season of doing our own PC elections. So we'll have we actually have to do our own petitions and it goes, it gets turned in at the same time the candidates turn in their petition signatures, so April 6th. And we become elected PCs from the years 2020 to 2022. So right now, all the elected PCs were elected in 2018, and their term is up in 2020. Appointed is anybody who wanted to be a PC after the election. They missed the election, and then we appoint them, if there's a spot.
I'd just like to finish.
I just have one comment, and you do have to have some financial resources available.
That's a good point.
In this process, because that was a disillusioning factor when certain people were elected to the convention. They had to find out that they had to spend a fair amount of money, and I think it should be on that protocol that you need to have some financial backing, either people contributing to your campaign or your own personal financing, because that really was
Can I just ask, can I ask how expensive do you think it was?
Oh,
Depends on the-
expensive was it?
Depends on the city.
Well, wait,
This
Milwaukee.
yeah.
This one will
yeah.
be Milwaukee,
Yeah.
so it probably, won't be too bad. We were in Philadelphia, and I'll tell you what, Patrice said this, it was a hoot. It was
About like
democracy in action straight.
2,000?
So you
I
have
don't know.
your tickets.
At least.
You have your tickets, and by the way, one of the things you should go online and check and see what it's gonna cost to get there. We're gonna kind of get into this next. National Convention, it's in Milwaukee. There will be a Arizona delegation hotel, okay? And they're gonna give you their quote cut rate, which let me tell you is not cut rate. But they'll give you a delegate rate. I believe ours was $240 a night.
Wow.
That was Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, that might be a cut rate. I don't know what it's gonna be in Milwaukee. So I'm gonna say you've gotta pay for your airfare. You have cut rate at your convention hotel. They do provide you bus transportation services from your hotel to the delegation, Arizona delegation breakfast, if they can't hold it at the hotel, and we'll talk about that in a minute. They do provide you transportation from your hotel to the convention center and back home in the middle of the night, literally about midnight, you'll get back. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So I'm gonna guess that if you needed to put a budget out, oh, and then, by the way, other than breakfast, which you get, and there are parties, which you can go and just eat all the food at the parties. That's what the Bernie delegates do, just kidding.
we call it grassroots.
But I mean, it's about $3,000. I think you better budget that.
And then Patty Hansen has offered to form a committee. Patty, do you want to speak about that?
Yeah, since we're the Democratic Party, I think it's important that anybody who wants to go should not be kept from going because of lack of funds.
Right.
So I have pledged that I will try to raise money, and hopefully some other people will volunteer to underwrite the cost. I went to the National Convention in 1984 and 1988 from Nebraska. And the good state of Nebraska, that state Democratic Party funded my airfare and my hotel so I could attend. I was really poor. So I make that pledge to all of you, and if you're interested, let me know. And if you're willing to work on a committee, my guess is that we'll need to raise about $5,000 to $8,000.
Per person?
No.
Okay.
For two, yeah, but it's
For
about
three.
it's about 3,000, so if you
Yeah.
can get a partial funding,
Yes.
then that would be fabulous.
Let me just, Let me wrap this up because we have a big agenda yet to go. Patrice can talk about the fun at the Democratic National Convention. I want to point out that this convention in 2020 may be the first brokered convention since 1952. So if you want to be part of history, you want to do this. And as Patty said, don't let money hold you back.
What does that
I'm
mean?
volunteering to be on Patty's committee to raise money to send delegates from northern Arizona. Also, don't be intimidated by this thick document. There's a bunch of stuff in here that doesn't apply to us running in Coconino County, or you running, I'm not running. And it's all about legislative district processes, which applies in Pima County and Maricopa County. Don't worry about those details. It's a process. You have to pay attention to the details, but it's not that complex. Don't be put off. Run.
What's a brokered convention?
A brokered convention means that on the first ballot, no candidate has more than 50%. And
that changes the vote dynamics, by the way, too.
yeah, it means on the first ballot this time, only non-superdelegates can vote. The second ballot, superdelegates can vote, but it also means people are going to be negotiating for delegates.
Can I
Patty.
just ask two quick questions? Do you need the approval of the candidate campaign committee to run as a delegate?
Yes,
How
yes.
do you get that?
Each campaign has, well, let me put it this way. Each campaign, presidential campaign, has the ability to review and the right to review the delegates that were voted on, and they can reject a particular delegate, or delegates if they want.
It's veto power after
So
the election.
the declaration of what candidate you want to run for is made at the state convention, or do you make it ahead of time?
I didn't hear.
With
Yes,
some
you make it
formal
ahead of time.
declaration?
You have to, you declare
Yeah,
ahead
you
of
have
time.
to, you have to submit a declaration candidacy,
To the state party?
right.
Okay.
But did
And
you
then
say?
the unaffiliated, what are they? What delegates are those? Are
They're
those
people
the
who don't get
superdelegates,
elected.
or they're separate, like, is it like a group of independents?
You know,
that are-
last time, I don't think anyone ran that
Okay.
way.
They did not.
It's a technical ability that you have,
Okay.
but it's almost guaranteed that you won't get elected.
Thank you.
By the way, if you know, a lot of people who are committed to their candidate, as I said, I think that's your biggest, the biggest qualification to run for a national delegate is your commitment to a candidate. And if I was, for example, the whip on the floor for the Hillary campaign, and some of you may be very committed, and you will find yourself in a position, not only are you a delegate, but you're one of the whips or one of the leaders, floor leaders for a particular candidate. So, and that was a very interesting, lots of fun as well, and I'd be glad to talk to you about it. Real quick, and we'll wrap this up. Your day begins at 6 a.m., okay? Begins at 6 a.m., you get on the bus, you get to breakfast. Breakfast is with your Arizona delegation. It is fabulous. They bring in speakers. John Lewis was one of our speakers. It was phenomenal. And it was also a great way for us to get to know the Arizona delegation. After that, you pick up your credentials. And if you bring a spouse, significant other with you to the convention, there are some visitor credentials available. They sit way up in the rafters. The delegates sit on the convention floor. But if you do bring someone, there is availability for them to get credentials and sit up with the visitor
It is a
section.
limited availability.
Yeah. But it is there, so. And so your day begins at 6, you run in, you shovel some food in, because that may be the only food you get. And you meet with your delegates, you meet with people that they've called in to talk on various events. Then you start going to committee meetings, or you're invited to a number of organizations. Every organization you can think of, whether it be environmental organization, they're all there. So you get invited to their meetings, their lunches, their everything else, and it's a great way to find out what's going on in the country. And then you run off to get back to your hotel. So you get on that bus, and you get on that bus, usually the traffic is horrible. The traffic in Milwaukee is going to be gridlock, okay? So you've got to get on that bus probably about 2:30 and 3. You better get on that bus and get to the convention site on time. There are events and votes that take place right after that gavel falls. So you are there from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock. It may vary somewhat, but it's really a long, long day. There's voting, there's committee meetings on the floor that you're voting on. Then there are a number of candidates who are speaking for people from all over the country, the best and the brightest. You know, we had Michelle Obama, we had Barack Obama, you know, we had a million people. It was really fabulous. And they also provide you some musical entertainment. We had Paul Simon, we had Katy Perry, and so it's really a full day and very, very, very interesting.
We'll be exhausted.
And then you get out of there about 11:30, you try to find your bus, and you get on that bus and you get back to your hotel, usually about 12:30, 1 o'clock, and you grab something to eat, usually with the delegation again, so that's fun. You can spend some time with them, have a quick glass of wine, and then you go to sleep. So, and then you start all over again. So one other thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise. It is really, really important. It is really important. Keep the folks back home that got you there, keep them informed. So, you know, we did blogs, so everybody back home knew what we were doing. They're the ones who got you there. They're the ones you're representing. Keep them informed as to what's going on. So I encourage you to run. It's fabulous. So please run.